When I was in middle school, I walked to school every morning because my house was close enough to the school that I could. I remember those days fondly. Being able to get myself up and ready and to school all on my own was liberating. However, the school started cracking down on walkers when word got out that we kids were leaving school to go directly to a gas station across the street to grab some slushies. The school's official position was that because we hadn't returned home yet, we were still technically their responsibility, so if we got hit by a car, they would be at fault. This is because this school was situated really close to a highway intersection with a speed limit of 65 miles an hour. So instead of focusing on the cause of the problem, they decided to force us to go home first if we wanted a slushie. All but admitting their safety concerns with having the intersection so close to the school, but weirdly deflecting responsibility onto us as middle schoolers. Highways have historically been used to restrict the free movement of people in cities and have paradoxically created a society that promotes the movement of people through cities instead. In this speech, I will address why car culture is such a big deal in America, car dependency, the problems with it, and propose an effective solution that hopes to alleviate these issues. From Henry Ford's Model T that brought cheap, reliable transportation to millions, to the sex appeal of muscle cars in the mid-20th century, to the lifted F-150s with blinding LED lights that so lovingly tailgate us while going 15 over in the left lane today, cars have been an integral part of American society. According to a 2014 Bloomberg article by Ralph Bueller, by the mid-1930s there was already one registered automobile for every 2 U.S. households, and by the 1950s, the rapid growth of President Eisenhower's Interstate Highway System, or IHS, had penetrated urban areas and destroyed and cut off entire neighborhoods and facilitated suburban sprawl. This had drastic effects on the ecosystem of urban America. Robert Moses, New York City's construction coordinator at the time, spoke in 1959 on the IHS, stating that our categorical imperative is action to clear the slums. And to do this, the highways must go right through cities and not around them. And so they did. I grew up in a suburb of St. Louis, about a half-hour drive from the city, and I'm sure many others who grew up in that area have experienced the joys of driving down Highway 64. The speed limit seems to be optional on that highway. I've regularly seen people flying going 90 to 100 miles an hour directly through the heart of the city. It's not safe. In fact, in a report published by the CDC in 2022, motor vehicle crashes resulted in the deaths of an average of 101 people per day from 2015 to 2019. And now that 91% of households have at least one vehicle, and 22% of households have 3 or more, according to a 2023 Forbes article by Ashley Tilford, it's only getting more dangerous. In that same article, she states that personal and commercial vehicle registrations increased by 3.6%, indicating an upward trend in car ownership. Compounding on these statistics, zoning laws in cities and suburbs are making it more and more difficult to build anything but single-family housing, exacerbating the problem and spreading Americans even further apart. This, however, has not always been the case. Before cars existed, the most efficient way of crisscrossing the nation was by train, and it still is. Trains are more energy efficient than both planes and cars, yet we don't seem to use them as much. According to the 2020 report from the International Union of Railways, Americans traveled approximately 32 billion kilometers per year on rail networks, ranked only 10th in the world. To put that into perspective, China's citizens, at number 1, travel about 1.5 trillion kilometers per year on rail, followed by India's citizens at 1.15 trillion, and Japan's at 446 billion. Why is that? Well, with the sheer amount of people who already own a car, and with the car-centric infrastructure already in place, there's not really a good reason to switch, right? Wrong. Have you heard of climate change? It's kind of a hot-button issue right now, given that we might not have a world to live in if we don't change how we as a society function. Many corporations admit that they are concerned about the climate, but try to pass the responsibility of climate change onto the citizens. We're the issue. If we use paper straws and reduce, reuse, and recycle more, then the world will be saved. Don't worry that only 100 corporations are responsible for 71% of pollution worldwide. You need to go home before you get a slushie, so when you're hit by a car, it's not our fault. Leaving aside the climate considerations, though, public transport is more space efficient than cars are. According to the specifications of the New York City subway cars, each cab can fit around 176 to 188 people in it. That's over 150 more than the average SUV. And sitting at a rough 51 feet in length, each car takes up the space of about 3 Ford F-150s. There's a similar situation with buses, but you get the point. You can transport many more people more efficiently, oftentimes quicker, and with less environmental impact on trains than cars. The solution seems simple enough then, doesn't it? We need more cities that are less car dependent. Cities where you can walk or bike or take a train for everything you need to do. Cities where all your errands are within a 15-minute walk from your residence, perhaps? 15-minute cities. It's 15-minute cities. The concept of the 15-minute city is simple. Urbanist Carlos Moreno's 2021 article reintroduced it as a way to ensure that urban residents can fulfill 6 essential functions within a 15-minute walk or bike ride from their dwellings: living, working, commerce, healthcare, education, and entertainment. That's the whole concept. It seems so easy, but with zoning laws and the infrastructure for cars so heavily installed, it's not going to be a quick fix. Especially when some policymakers peddle the idea that this concept is a plan to restrict the freedoms of Americans and force them to never leave their 15-minute areas. A Conservative member of the British Parliament, Nick Fletcher, this year described walkable cities as an international socialist concept in a scoop from the Liverpool Echo. I didn't know it was socialist to not want to drive 20 minutes both ways to the grocery store. Having the option to walk, bike, or take a train to wherever you need to go is healthier for the planet, more space efficient, and costs significantly less than cars do. My family has since moved away from the house I grew up in. Now they live in an even more car-dependent area, and with my youngest brother in elementary school, the only way he's getting there is by car or bus. He doesn't have that option to walk or even bike to school, to have that small sense of independence that I had when I was his age. The world is ever-changing. We're drifting apart from each other both physically and socially. Continuing the American tradition of car dependency is actively harming us as a society. Increasing the number of walkable areas in our cities is a crucial step in fostering a better place to live for all of us, and it should be taken as soon as possible.